The locket wouldn't stay closed. Claire Hastings had noticed it 3 days ago, sitting in the jewelry box her sister Anna had left behind. Every time Claire pressed the delicate golden clasp shut, it would spring open again within hours, revealing the faded photograph inside. A young woman with Anna's eyes, wearing clothes from another era. Click, close, click, open, like it was trying to tell her something. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. Claire stood at the kitchen sink of her studio apartment, washing dishes from last night's dinner. Ramen again, stretched with frozen vegetables to make it last. Her hands were red and raw from the industrial soap at the nursing home, where she worked the overnight shift. $6 above minimum wage. Barely enough to keep her and her daughter Lily fed, clothed, and one missed paycheck away from eviction. The locket sat on the windowsill, catching the weak February light. Anna had worn it every day of her life until the cancer took her 8 months ago. Claire had kept it, one of the few things her older sister had owned that wasn't claimed by medical debt or sold to pay for the funeral Claire couldn't afford. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Claire almost ignored it. Bill collectors had gotten creative lately, but something made her answer. Is this Claire Hastings? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Yes. This is Margaret Chun from Whitfield & Associates, estate attorneys. I'm calling regarding the estate of Josephine Hartwell, deceased. Our records indicate you're listed as next of kin. Claire's mind went blank. I think you have a wrong person. I don't know anyone named. Josephine Hartwell was your maternal grandmother. She passed away 6 weeks ago. You and your daughter Lily are named as sole beneficiaries in her will. The dish Claire had been holding slipped into the soapy water with a splash. My grandmother? I've never met her. I didn't even know I had a grandmother. Yes, well, Margaret Chin's voice softened slightly. There appears to have been a family estrangement. Your mother Rebecca never reconciled with Mrs. Hartwell before her own passing. However, Mrs. Hartwell made very specific provisions in her will updated just 3 months before her death. Claire sank into a kitchen chair, her wet hands leaving prints on the formica table. Her mother had died when Claire was 16, her father already long gone. She'd raised Anna until Anna turned 18, then put herself through nursing school while Anna drifted, struggled, eventually succumbed to the breast cancer that had taken their mother too. What kind of provisions? You've inherited a business property in Millbrook, Connecticut, a Locket restoration shop called Hartwell Heirlooms. The reading of the will is scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. Can you attend? Claire thought about her schedule. Friday she worked a double, overnight Thursday into Friday morning, then the evening shift Friday night. She needed both paychecks. Rent was due in 9 days. I work Fridays. Miss Hastings, I strongly encourage you to attend. The estate requires immediate attention, and there are time-sensitive matters to discuss. After they hung up, Claire sat staring at the locket on the windowsill. A grandmother she'd never met. A business she'd never heard of. In a town 3 hours north that might as well be on another planet. She picked up the locket, studying the photograph inside. The young woman looked so much like Anna, it made Claire's chest tight. But this photo was old, 70s maybe, based on the clothing and hairstyle. Click. The locket sprang open again in her hand. Mom! Lily appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. 12 years old, all long limbs and questions, wearing jeans Claire had mended twice and a sweater from the Goodwill that was only slightly too big. I'm gonna miss the bus. Right. Sorry, baby. Claire closed the locket and slipped it into her pocket. Have a good day at school. You okay? You look weird. I'm fine. Just tired. After Lily left, Claire pulled up her phone and searched Hartwell Heirlooms Millbrook CT. The results were sparse. A business listing with no website, just an address on something called Frost Street. A few mentions in historical society documents about the town's antique district. One newspaper article from 2003 about Josephine Hartwell winning a restoration award for a Victorian locket containing daguerreotypes. Claire clicked on images. There, a storefront clearly old, with a hand-painted sign reading Hartwell Heirlooms. Locket restoration and repair since 1952. The windows were dark, empty. The building looked frozen in time, like it had been waiting for something. Or someone. That evening, Claire called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The lie tasted bitter, but the curiosity gnawing at her was worse. A grandmother she'd never known had left her business. Why? Why her? Why now? She called her manager at the nursing home. I have a family emergency. I need Friday off. Claire, we're already short-staffed. I know. I'm sorry. It's my grandmother. She died. That part, at least, wasn't a lie. Friday morning, Claire and Lily took the train north. It cost $43 they didn't have, charged to a credit card that was already maxed out. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that this mattered, that the Locket's constant opening meant something. Lily pressed her face to the window as the city gave way to suburbs, then small towns, then the rolling hills of Connecticut blanketed in late winter snow. I've never been on a train before. Claire's heart squeezed. 12 years old, and this was her first train ride. What kind of childhood was that? It's pretty, isn't it? Yeah. Lily's breath fogged the glass. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me about your grandmother? I didn't know about her, baby. My mom never talked about her family. That's weird. It was weird. Claire's mother, Rebecca, had been tight-lipped about her past, about family, about everything before Claire was born. She'd always said the past didn't matter, only moving forward. But maybe Rebecca had just been running from something. Or someone. Millbrook was the kind of town that belonged on a postcard. Historic buildings lined Main Street, antique shops and cafes with cheerful awnings. Snow clung to decorative wrought iron, and ice sculptures from some recent festival still stood in the town square. The law office of Whitfield and Associates sat above a bookstore, accessed by a narrow staircase that creaked under their feet. Margaret Chin met them in a small conference room that smelled of old paper and lemon polish. Miss Hastings, thank you for coming. Margaret was younger than Claire expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She shook Claire's hand, then smiled at Lily. And you must be Lily. Your great-grandmother left something specifically for you. Lily's eyes widened. She did. We'll get to that. Margaret gestured to chairs around a polished table. First, I need to go over the basics of the estate. She opened a folder. Josephine Hartwell passed away on January 8th of this year at the age of 91. She had no other living relatives besides you and Lily. Her estate consists primarily of the business property, the building that houses Hartwell heirlooms, along with its contents and inventory. What's it worth? Claire asked, then felt crass. But she needed to know. If she could sell it, maybe she could finally breathe. Maybe she could give Lily a real childhood. Margaret's expression shifted, something Claire couldn't quite read. The building itself is assessed at approximately $160,000. It's in the historic district, which limits what can be done with it structurally. The neighborhood has seen better days. Most of the antique shops have closed. Claire's hope deflated. $160,000, minus taxes, minus legal fees, minus whatever debt the business carried. Maybe she'd walk away with $70,000 if she was lucky. Enough to move to a better apartment, buy Lily some new clothes, build a small emergency fund. But not enough to change their lives. However, Margaret continued, there are conditions. Of course there were. You must visit the property within 30 days of this meeting. The business cannot be sold for 1 year from the date of Mrs. Hartwell's death. And you must go alone, except for your daughter. Why? Mrs. Hartwell was very specific about these terms, but she didn't explain her reasoning. She did, however, leave you this. Margaret slid an envelope across the table. She instructed me to give it to you before discussing anything else. Claire's hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting inside was elegant, old-fashioned, the letters carefully formed. My dear Claire, we never met, and for that I carry more regret than you can know. Your mother left my home when you were just a baby, and I let pride keep me from reaching out, from trying to mend what was broken between us. By the time I understood my mistake, Rebecca was gone, and I thought perhaps it was too late. I've watched you from a distance these past years. Please don't think me strange. I simply needed to know that Rebecca's daughter survived, that she became someone good and strong. You have. The shop I'm leaving you appears worthless to the world. Let them think so, but you'll understand when you arrive. Look for what others overlook. Trust the locket you carry. Anna knew its secret, though she never had the chance to claim it. Everything I've built, everything I've protected, I leave to you because you know what it means to stand alone, to fight for those you love, to build something from nothing. Go to the shop, find the archive room, and remember, the greatest treasures are hidden in the smallest places. With love I could never show, Josephine. Claire read it twice, then looked up at Margaret. What does she mean? Anna knew the secret. My sister. Margaret pulled out another document. Anna Hastings visited Mrs. Hartwell 3 times in the months before her death. I have records of their meetings, though I don't know what they discussed. Your sister was apparently researching your family history. The locket in Claire's pocket seemed to pulse with heat. Anna had known about their grandmother, had met her, had kept it secret, even as the cancer spread, even in those final weeks. Why? There's more, Margaret said gently. The shop has been closed for 15 years. Mrs. Hartwell shut it down when she could no longer work, but she maintained the property, paid all taxes and fees. Everything inside is exactly as she left it. 15 years. Claire tried to imagine a building sitting empty that long. Why didn't she sell it? She said she was waiting. For what? Margaret's expression softened. For you. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Papers to sign, keys to receive, instructions about utilities and security systems. Margaret mentioned something about outstanding property taxes, 3 years' worth, approximately $20,000, that needed to be addressed within 6 months. 20,000. Claire felt sick. She didn't have 20,000. She didn't have 2,000. Outside, on the snowy street, Lily tugged her sleeve. Can we see it? The shop. Claire checked her phone. They had 2 hours before the last train back to the city. Yeah, let's see it. Frost Street was 6 blocks from Maine, where the town's charm gave way to something sadder. Empty storefronts with dusty windows. Faded for lease signs. A beauty parlor that looked like it hadn't updated since 1987. And there, between a shuttered bookstore and a boarded-up cafe, stood Hartwell Heirlooms. The building was narrow, 3 stories of red brick with large display windows on the ground floor. The hand-painted sign Claire had seen in photos was still there, though the gold lettering had faded. Through the grimy windows, she could make out shapes, display cases, chairs, something that might have been a workbench. Claire tried the first key Margaret had given her. The lock was stiff, resisting, then finally turning with a groan that echoed down the empty street. The door swung open. The smell hit her first, dust and old paper and something else, something almost sweet like dried flowers. Claire fumbled for a light switch. Fluorescent panels flickered to life, buzzing, revealing a space frozen in time. The front room was set up like a shop. Display cases lined the walls, their glass surfaces clouded with dust. Inside were lockets, hundreds of them, gold and silver, plain and ornate, some as small as a thumbnail, others as large as a pocket watch. Each one had a small tag attached with careful handwriting noting its age, origin, condition. A workbench dominated the center of the room, magnifying lamps and tiny tools still arranged as if Josephine had just stepped away for lunch. Photographs covered the walls, before and after shots of restoration projects. A Victorian locket encrusted with rust transformed to gleaming beauty. A broken chain meticulously repaired. A photograph faded nearly to white brought back to clarity through careful preservation. Mom, Lily breathed. This is amazing. It was. Claire had expected something sad, abandoned, worthless. Instead, she found evidence of incredible skill, of artistry, of someone who had devoted their life to preserving tiny fragments of other people's histories. She moved deeper into the shop. Behind the main room, a doorway led to what must have been Josephine's workshop. More tools, more supplies, filing cabinets labeled with dates and names. A small kitchen area with a hot plate and kettle. Stairs leading up to what Margaret had described as a small apartment on the 2nd floor. And at the very back, partially hidden behind a heavy curtain, a door. It was different from the others, heavier, metal, with a modern lock that looked out of place in this vintage setting. A small plaque beside it read Archive. Authorized personnel only. Claire tried the keys Margaret had given her. None fit. There's another door upstairs, Lily called from the staircase. Can I look? Stay where I can see you, Claire said automatically, still examining the archive door. Why would a Locket restoration shop need a vault-style archive room? What could possibly be in there? She pulled out her phone and called Margaret. There's a locked door in the back. A room marked archive. None of the keys you gave me fit. I know. Mrs. Hartwell left specific instructions about that room. You're to locate a particular locket in the main inventory, catalog number 1952-001. Inside it, you'll find the key. Why all the mystery? I asked her the same thing. Margaret's voice was gentle. She said you'd understand when you found it. That some secrets need to be unwrapped slowly, like a gift. After they hung up, Claire began searching the display cases. The lockets were organized by decade, then by catalog number. She found a 1950s section easily enough, 2 entire cases devoted to them. 1952-001 should be the first one, but the space where it should have been was empty. Just a tag reading, Hartwell Original. Personal archive. Mom, look, Lily called from upstairs. There's a whole room full of photographs. Claire climbed the narrow stairs to find Lily in what must have been Josephine's living space. It was sparse but comfortable, a small bedroom, a bathroom, a sitting area with a view of the street below. But Lily was right about the photographs. One entire wall was covered with them. Family photos spanning decades. Claire recognized her mother, young, maybe 20, holding a baby. That must be her, Claire realized. Her mother at 20 with infant Claire, standing in front of this very building. There were others. Anna as a toddler. Anna at maybe 5, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. Anna at 10, serious and studying something intently. She was watching us, Claire whispered. All along, she was watching. Who's this? Lily pointed to another photo. 2 women, one Claire's age, one elderly, standing together in the shop downstairs. The younger woman was clearly Anna, but thinner, wearing a scarf over her head. Chemo. Anna had come here, had stood in this shop, had met their grandmother while Claire knew nothing about it. Why hadn't she said anything? Claire studied the photo more closely. Anna was holding something, a locket, the same locket that now sat in Claire's pocket, the one that wouldn't stay closed. She pulled it out, examining it with new eyes. Gold, delicate, with an engraving on the back she'd never noticed before. JH 1952. Josephine Hartwell. 1952. The catalog number. 1952-001. Claire opened the locket. The photograph inside showed the same young woman she'd seen before, but now Claire noticed details she'd missed. The woman was standing in front of Hartwell heirlooms, and she was holding a baby. Rebecca, Claire's mother. She tried to remove the photograph, but it was stuck fast. She examined the locket more carefully, running her fingers along the inside edge. There, a tiny catch, almost invisible. When she pressed it, the photograph lifted, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside was a key. Small, brass, modern. Nothing like the antique keys one would expect with a vintage locket. And stamped on its surface, Archive. Did you find something? Lily asked. Claire held up the key. I think so. They went back downstairs, Claire's heart hammering. The locket had been trying to tell her something. Anna had known, had come here, had learned whatever secret Josephine had been keeping, and then had died before she could tell Claire. The key fit the archive door perfectly. The lock clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the silent shop. The door was heavy, requiring both hands to pull open. Beyond it, darkness. Claire found a light switch. Track lighting hummed to life, revealing a staircase leading down. Maybe I should stay up here, Lily said, suddenly nervous. Yeah, that's probably smart. Claire's own nerves were jangling. Stay by the front door. If anything seems wrong, you run, okay? Mom, I'm sure it's fine. Just old family stuff. But just in case. The stairs were concrete, modern, completely at odds with the vintage building above. At the bottom, another door. This one already unlocked. Claire pushed it open. The room beyond stole her breath. It wasn't just an archive. It was a vault. climate-controlled, professionally lit, with wall-to-wall shelving units displaying lockets in protective cases. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, each one pristine, documented, preserved. But these weren't restoration projects. These were something else entirely. Claire moved closer to the first display case. Inside was a locket, gold, ornate, clearly antique. A small placard beside it read, Empress Josephine, France, 1805. Provenance, Malmaison Estate Sale, 1982. Contains original hair sample from Napoleon Bonaparte. Estimated value, $340,000. Claire's vision blurred. She read it again. $340,000 for one locket? She moved to the next case. Russian Imperial. Faberge Workshop, 1898. Provenance, Sotheby's, 1991. Contains miniature portrait by Zichy. Estimated value, $890,000. Nearly $1 million. The next case. Marie Antoinette. France, 1780. Provenance, Private Collection, 2001. Contains authenticated hair sample, original watercolor portrait. Estimated value, $1.2 million. Claire's legs gave out. She sank onto a bench in the center of the room, unable to process what she was seeing. This wasn't a locket restoration shop. It was a museum, a private collection of historical lockets worth. She couldn't even calculate. She forced herself to stand, to keep looking. The cases went on and on. Every famous woman in history seemed to be represented. Queen Victoria, Cleopatra, allegedly, Elizabeth I, Mary, Queen of Scots, Catherine the Great. And in the center of the room, under special lighting, a case labeled the Hartwell Collection, Original Acquisitions. Inside were lockets that didn't belong to famous people. These were family pieces, ordinary women, extraordinary preservation. Each one carefully documented with names, dates, family histories, and a ledger on a podium beside it. Claire opened the ledger with trembling hands. Page after page of acquisitions, dates, prices paid, current values. Josephine had documented everything with meticulous care. She flipped to the final page. A summary sheet in Josephine's elegant handwriting. Total collection value as of January 2024, $471 million. For Claire and Lily, who will know what to do with history's smallest treasures. $471 million. Claire sat down hard, the ledger falling from her hands. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. People like her didn't inherit $500 million. Single mothers working overnight shifts at nursing homes didn't become accidental heiresses to museum-quality collections. But the evidence was all around her. Case after case of authenticated, documented, priceless artifacts. All here, in the basement of an abandoned locket shop on a dying street in a small Connecticut town. All belonging to her. Mom! Lily's voice echoed down the stairs. Mom, you okay? You've been down there for like 20 minutes. I'm fine, baby. Claire called back, though her voice shook. There's a lot to look at. She stood on unsteady legs and continued exploring. Found a desk in the corner with filing cabinets. More documentation. Insurance policies. Appraisals. Authentication certificates from museums and auction houses around the world. And another envelope, this one labeled for Claire, reads second. Inside was a longer letter. My dear Claire, if you're reading this, you found the collection. I imagine you're overwhelmed, frightened, perhaps convinced this must be a mistake. It's not. I spent 60 years building this collection. Started with my mother's locket in 1952, the one I've left to you. She died that year when I was 19, leaving me with nothing but that locket and a determination to preserve something of her memory. I taught myself restoration, turned a hobby into a business, and gradually, carefully began acquiring pieces. At first, I couldn't afford anything significant, but I learned to recognize value where others didn't. I bought at estate sales, small auctions, places dealers overlooked. I studied provenance, learned conservation, built relationships with museums and collectors. By the 1980s, I had built something remarkable. But I also knew that kind of wealth attracts the wrong attention. So I maintained the fiction of a simple restoration shop, lived modestly, kept the collection hidden. Your mother, Rebecca, left because she couldn't understand my choices. She saw the shop as worthless, saw me as wasting my life on trinkets and dead people's memories. When she took you and left, I let her go, thinking perhaps she was right. Perhaps I had become too focused on the past. But Anna understood. When she found me 3 years ago, sick and searching for family history, we talked for hours. She saw the collection and wept, not from greed, but from recognition. She understood that I'd been preserving stories, that each locket represented a woman's life, her loves, her losses. Anna wanted to tell you, but I asked her to wait. I was a coward, Claire, afraid of rejection, afraid you'd see me the way Rebecca did. And then Anna died, and I knew I'd waited too long. Now you stand where she stood, seeing what she saw. The question is, what will you do with it? The collection is yours. You can sell it all, walk away wealthy, never think about dusty old lockets again. Or you can do what Anna suggested, turn it into something more. A museum, a foundation, a way to preserve women's stories for generations. But Claire, hear this. The moment you reveal this collection's existence, your life will change forever. Museums will want it. Collectors will try to acquire pieces. The IRS will come calling. And family you've never heard of, will emerge claiming rights to what they think should be theirs. I've left instructions in the filing cabinet marked legal for how to handle this. Lawyers already retained, insurance policies in place, security measures you will need to activate. Everything you need to protect yourself. But first, before you tell anyone, take time to understand what you're holding. Read the histories. Look at the portraits. Let these women's stories sink in. Then decide. Whatever you choose, know that I'm proud of you. I've watched you raise Lily alone, work impossible hours, never complain, always survive. That's why I trust you with this. Because you understand what these women understood. That real strength isn't loud or obvious. It's quiet determination to protect what matters. All my love, Josephine. Claire read the letter 3 times before she could move. Then she carefully refolded it and climbed the stairs. Lily was sitting on the floor of the shop, looking at the lockets in the display cases. She looked up when Claire emerged. "Mom, your face is really pale. Are you okay?" Claire sat down beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Baby, I need to tell you something. Something big. Is it bad?" "No, not bad. Just complicated." She told Lily everything. About the collection, the value, Josephine's letter, and his secret visits. Lily listened in silence, her eyes growing wider with each revelation. When Claire finished, Lily said quietly, "That's a lot of money." "Yeah, like more money than exists money." "Pretty much." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Lily said, "What are we going to do?" Claire looked around the shop, at the evidence of Josephine's life's work, at the photographs on the wall showing 4 generations of women who'd all struggled, all survived, all found ways to make meaning from loss. "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but we're going to figure it out together. Can we afford the train home?" The question, so practical and small in the face of their massive inheritance, made Claire laugh. Then cry. Then laugh again until Lily joined in, both of them sitting on the dusty floor of a closed shop, giggling hysterically while $471 million in lockets waited in the vault below. Finally, Claire wiped her eyes and stood. "Come on, we need to get home. I have to work tomorrow." "Mom, you just inherited like $1 billion. You don't have to work anymore. $500 million. And yes, I do. Until I understand what all this means, we keep living our normal life. Nobody can know about this yet." As they locked up the shop and headed back toward the train station, Claire's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code. "Millbrook. Miss Hastings? This is Tom Whitfield, Margaret Chin's partner. I apologize for calling so late, but we've had an inquiry about your grandmother's estate. A man claiming to be your uncle called today, demanding information about the property. He says he's entitled to a portion of the inheritance as Josephine's nephew." Claire's stomach dropped. "I don't have an uncle. That's what I suspected. But he was quite insistent, even threatened legal action. I thought you should know someone's already sniffing around." After they hung up, Claire looked back at the shop. From the outside, it looked worthless, exactly as Josephine had intended. But now someone knew. Someone was looking for what might be hidden there. The locket in her pocket sprang open again. Claire didn't close it this time. She just stared at the photograph of young Josephine holding baby Rebecca, both of them standing in front of the shop that held secrets worth dying for. "Mom," Lily tugged her sleeve. "We're going to miss our train, right?" "Yeah." But as they walked through the darkening streets of Millbrook, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had just become very complicated and possibly very dangerous. The train ride home was quiet. Lily dozed against her shoulder while Claire stared out at the darkening landscape, her mind spinning. $471 million. She kept trying to wrap her head around it, but the number was too big, too abstract. It didn't feel real. Nothing about today felt real. Her phone buzzed. A text from her manager at the nursing home. "Hope family emergency resolved. We need you Sunday overnight. Can you do it?" Claire stared at the message. Her first instinct was to say yes, the way she always did. She needed the money, needed the job security, couldn't afford to seem unreliable. Except she'd just inherited enough money to never work another day in her life. But Josephine's letter had warned her. Don't tell anyone yet. Take time to understand what you're holding. And someone was already asking questions, claiming to be family. Claire texted back, "I'll be there." She'd keep working, keep living their small life, at least until she figured out what to do next. At least until she knew how to protect what Josephine had built. At least until she understood what $471 million in lockets actually meant. When they arrived back at their apartment building, it was nearly 9 p.m. The hallway smelled like fried food and mildew, a sharp contrast to the climate control perfection of Josephine's vault. Claire unlocked their door. 3 deadbolts because the neighborhood wasn't great, and they stepped into the familiar cramped space that suddenly felt even smaller. "I'm hungry," Lily said, dropping her backpack. "We have eggs, and I think there's some rice left from Wednesday." While Lily did her homework at the kitchen table, Claire fried eggs and reheated rice, her mind elsewhere. She kept seeing those display cases, row after row of lockets worth more than most people's houses. Marie Antoinette's locket alone was worth more than Claire would earn in 20 years of nursing home work. Her phone buzzed again. "Margaret Shun, just following up on today's meeting. I know it's overwhelming. Call me if you have questions. Also, please be very careful who you tell about the property. Your grandmother had good reasons for discretion." Claire stared at the message. Margaret knew about the collection. Had to know. She'd been Josephine's lawyer for years. She typed back, "How long have you known about the vault?" The reply came quickly. "Since 2019, when your grandmother updated her will." I was shocked too. She made me sign extensive NDAs. "There's a lot you need to know about protecting yourself. Can we meet next week?" Claire set down her phone, hands shaking. This was real. This was actually happening. "Mom, you're burning the eggs," Lily said. Claire yanked the pan off the heat. The eggs were black around the edges, but edible. She scraped them onto plates and sat down across from her daughter. "Baby, we need to have a serious conversation." Lily looked up from her math homework. "About the money? About keeping secrets? What we found today, nobody can know about it. Not your friends, not teachers, not anyone." "Okay, why?" "Because..." Claire struggled for how to explain. "Because when people know you have something valuable, they act different. Some get jealous. Some get greedy. Some try to take it from you. Like the fake uncle who called the lawyer. Exactly like that." Claire reached across the table and took Lily's hand. "I need you to understand how serious this is. We have to keep living exactly like we have been. Same apartment, same school, same everything. At least for now. How long? I don't know. Until I figure out how to keep us safe." That night, after Lily went to bed, Claire sat in the dark living room with the locket in her hands. She'd searched online for information about historical locket collections, about museum acquisitions, about anything that might help her understand what she was dealing with. What she found terrified her. Stories of museum heists, of private collectors murdered for their holdings, of families torn apart by inheritance battles, of con artists targeting sudden heirs. The deeper she dug, the more she understood why Josephine had hidden everything, had lived modestly, had kept the collection secret for 60 years. Wealth this significant didn't just change her life. It put a target on your back. Claire pulled up the photos she'd taken in the vault on her phone. She documented everything. Every case, every placard, every page of the ledger. Now, she studied them, really looked at the lockets themselves. Each one was beautiful. Yes, but more than that. Each one told a story. The Marie Antoinette locket contained a portrait of her children, painted in the months before her execution. The Russian imperial piece held a miniature of Alexandra and her daughters. The Victorian mourning lockets contained intricate hairwork from deceased loved ones. These weren't just valuable objects. They were pieces of history, fragments of women's lives preserved across centuries. Some were famous, but most weren't. Just ordinary women who'd carried photos of their babies, locks of their mother's hair, tiny painted memories of people they loved. Josephine hadn't just collected valuable objects. She'd preserved stories that might otherwise have been lost. Anna had understood that. That's why she'd wept when she saw the collection. According to Josephine's letter, Anna, who'd loved history, who'd studied genealogy in her free time, who'd spent her final months trying to piece together their family's past. Claire pulled out her laptop and searched for Anna Hastings genealogy research. Nothing. She tried Anna Hastings, Millbrook, Connecticut. Still nothing. Then she tried something else. Josephine Hartwell Locket Collection. One result popped up, a forum post from 3 years ago on an antiques discussion board. Username, A Hastings 91. Anna. Claire clicked through. The post was short. Does anyone have information about private locket collections in New England? Particularly pre-1900 pieces with verified provenance? Researching family history and following some interesting leads. The responses were typical forum stuff, suggestions to check museums, auction house records, estate sales. But one response caught Claire's eye from a user called Collector JB. I know of one significant private collection in CT, but the owner is very private. If you're serious about research and not just looking to sell, I might be able to make an introduction. Anna had replied, very serious. This is personal, not commercial. Would appreciate any help. And then nothing. The thread ended there. Claire checked the date. 3 years and 2 months ago, right around when Anna's cancer had been diagnosed. She must have reached out to Josephine somehow through this Collector JB person, met her, learned about the collection. But why hadn't she told Claire? Even after she knew she was dying, even in those final weeks, Anna had kept it secret. Claire clicked on Anna's profile. Only 2 posts, both on the same thread. But there was a bio section, librarian, history enthusiast, cancer survivor, fighting. Researching Hartwell family genealogy. Looking for information about Josephine Hartwell, born in 1933, Connecticut. Survivor. Anna had written that when she still thought she'd beat it. Claire closed the laptop, tears blurring her vision. Her sister had known about this incredible collection, had met their grandmother, had presumably been told she'd inherit it someday. But the cancer had moved too fast. Anna had died 9 months after that forum post, before she could explain any of it to Claire. Why had Josephine waited so long to reach out? If she'd been watching them all those years, why hadn't she helped when Anna got sick? When Claire was working 3 jobs to pay for Anna's treatment? When they'd lost their apartment and had to move into the studio they had now? The anger surprised her, hot and sudden. All that money, all that wealth sitting in a vault while they'd struggled and scraped and gone without. While Anna had died because they couldn't afford better treatment, couldn't afford experimental therapies, couldn't afford anything except the bare minimum their inadequate insurance covered. Josephine could have helped, could have saved Anna, but she kept her secrets instead. Claire stood abruptly, pacing the small living room. 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. That's all the space allowed. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers from a dead woman who couldn't give them. The locket was still on the coffee table. It had sprung open again, the photograph of young Josephine and baby Rebecca visible in the dim light. Claire picked it up, studied it more closely. There was something written on the back of the photograph, she realized. Tiny script, barely visible. She got her phone and used a flashlight to illuminate it. Rebecca Marie Hartwell. Born April 3rd, 1973. My everything. Josephine had loved Claire's mother. had loved her enough to document it on the back of a photograph she carried every day. But Rebecca had left anyway, had taken infant Claire and disappeared, had raised her daughters without ever mentioning the grandmother who had loved them from afar. Why? Claire needed to know, needed to understand what had broken their family so completely that mother and daughter couldn't reconcile, even after decades. Needed to understand why Anna had kept secrets, why Josephine had waited, why no one had trusted Claire with the truth until it was too late. She opened her laptop again and searched for Josephine Hartwell more specifically. Found obituaries from Millbrook, brief, factual, no mention of family. Found business records showing Hartwell Heirlooms had operated from 1952 to 2009. Found nothing that explained the woman herself. But then, on the third page of results, she found something else. A newspaper article from 1973. Local business owner's daughter missing. Millbrook resident Rebecca Hartwell, 23, has been reported missing by her mother, Josephine Hartwell. Rebecca was last seen leaving her mother's Locket restoration shop on Tuesday evening with her 3-month-old daughter. Police say there's no sign of foul play and believe Rebecca left voluntarily. Anyone with information should contact 3-month-old daughter. That was Claire. Her mother hadn't just left. She'd run, had been reported missing, had disappeared so completely the police had been involved. Claire kept searching, found a follow-up article from 2 weeks later. Missing woman located, refuses to return home. Rebecca Hartwell has been located safe in New York City, according to Millbrook police. The young mother indicated she left voluntarily and does not wish to return to Connecticut. No charges are being filed. Her mother, Josephine Hartwell, declined to comment. New York City. Rebecca had taken infant Claire and run to New York, where she'd raise her daughters in poverty rather than accept help from her mother. Why? Claire searched for more, but that was it. After 1973, Josephine Hartwell disappeared from news coverage except for occasional mentions of award-winning restoration work. She'd gone back to her quiet life, her secret collection, her careful documentation of other women's stories. But somewhere in that shop, there had to be more. Had to be Rebecca's story, had to be answers about what had driven mother and daughter apart so completely. Claire looked at the clock. Nearly midnight. She had to work tomorrow, needed sleep, but her mind was racing. She pulled out the papers Margaret had given her, keys, property documents, insurance information. At the bottom of the stack was something she'd missed before. A small envelope labeled Storage Unit Number 47. Inside was another key and an address in Millbrook. A storage facility. What else had Josephine hidden? Claire tucked the key into her wallet. She couldn't go back to Millbrook immediately. Had to work, had to maintain normalcy, had to be careful. But soon she'd go back and find whatever else Josephine had left behind. The locket snapped open again in her hand. This time, Claire noticed something she'd missed before. The photograph wasn't just stuck down, there was something beneath it, something that created a slight bulge under the paper. She got a butter knife from the kitchen and carefully worked the edge under the photograph. It lifted slowly, the old adhesive releasing. Underneath wasn't just the hidden compartment with the archive key. There was something else, another photograph, smaller, older, folded to fit the tiny space. Claire unfolded it with trembling fingers. 2 women stood in front of Hartwell Heirlooms. One was clearly Josephine, maybe in her 40s. The other was younger, visibly pregnant, smiling. Rebecca, and written on the back in Josephine's careful script. Rebecca and me. 3 days before Claire was born. The last good day. 3 days before Claire was born. And then, 3 months later, Rebecca had run. What had happened in those 3 months? What had broken them? Claire stared at the photograph until her eyes burned. 2 women smiling, unaware their relationship was about to shatter beyond repair. One would spend the next 50 years building a fortune in secret. The other would die young after a life of struggle, never speaking her mother's name. And Claire was caught in the middle of it, inheriting a mystery wrapped in millions of dollars and decades of silence. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. I know what you found. We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow, noon, at the Millbrook Diner. Come alone. Don't tell the lawyers. Claire's blood ran cold. She stared at the message, trying to think. How did someone know? She'd told no one except Lily. The lawyers were bound by confidentiality. Unless someone had been watching the shop, had seen him go in, had figured it out, or unless Josephine had told someone before she died. Claire's finger hovered over the delete button. Every instinct said this was dangerous, that meeting a stranger who somehow knew about the collection was the worst idea possible. But if someone else knew, she needed to know who and what they wanted. Needed to know if they were a threat. She typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. Someone who knew your grandmother well. Someone who helped her build what she left you. Someone who can help you protect it, or destroy you if you don't cooperate. Your choice. Noon tomorrow. Claire's hand shook. This was a threat. Clear and simple. She screenshot the messages and sent them to Margaret Shun with a brief explanation. Then she called the lawyer's number, not expecting an answer at midnight on a Friday. Margaret picked up on the second ring. "Claire, are you okay? I got threatening texts. Someone knows about the collection. Tell me everything." Claire explained about the messages, about being ordered to meet this unknown person. Margaret was silent for a long moment. "Don't go," she said finally. "Forward me those texts. I'm calling the police. But what if they know something important? What if they can tell me what happened with my mother and grandmother?" "Claire, listen to me. Your grandmother spent 60 years keeping that collection secret for good reasons. Whoever sent those texts is dangerous. They try to intimidate you, isolate you from legal help. It's a classic con. But they said they help her build the collection. Then they can talk to me during business hours like a legitimate business contact, not through anonymous threats at midnight." Margaret's voice was firm. "Promise me you won't go." Claire looked at the photograph of Josephine and Rebecca smiling together. "The last good day. I promise," she said. After they hung up, Claire sat in the dark apartment, listening to the sounds of the building around her. Televisions through thin walls. Someone arguing in Spanish 3 floors up. A siren in the distance. This was her world. Small, cramped, familiar. Safe. But tomorrow she had to work overnight at the nursing home. Had to pretend everything was normal. Had to smile at patients and change bedpans and act like she wasn't sitting on $471 million in lockets. Had to figure out how to protect a fortune she didn't understand from people who want to take it. The locket lay open on the coffee table, both photographs now visible. Young Josephine holding baby Rebecca. Older Josephine with pregnant Rebecca. 2 moments of joy captured before everything fell apart. Claire carefully replaced both photographs, pressed the locket closed. It stayed shut for exactly 17 seconds before springing open again, like it was still trying to tell her something. Like Anna's death and Josephine's secrets and mysterious texts were all connected somehow, pieces of a puzzle Claire needed to solve before it was too late. She looked at Lily's closed bedroom door. Her daughter, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger they might be in. Whatever happened next, Claire would protect her. The way Josephine had tried to protect Rebecca. The way Rebecca had tried to protect Claire by running. The way Anna had tried to protect them both by keeping secrets. 4 generations of women, all trying to shield the next from something. But what? Claire needed answers. And she had a feeling they were waiting in that storage unit, in the shop's hidden corners, in the gaps between what Josephine had said and what she'd left unsaid. But first, she had to get through tomorrow. Had to stay alert. Had to keep Lily safe. Had to figure out who was threatening them and what they really wanted. The locket sprang open again. Claire didn't close it this time. She just stared at Josephine's young face, at the baby Rebecca who would grow up to run away, at the evidence of love that somehow hadn't been enough. "What happened to you?" she whispered to the photograph. "What scared Mom so badly she ran? What are you trying to tell me?" But the photograph, like Josephine herself, kept its secrets. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the city in white, erasing footprints, hiding evidence, blanketing everything in cold silence. And somewhere in Millbrook, in a shop everyone thought was worthless, $471 million in lockets waited in the dark, holding the stories of women across centuries, women who'd loved and lost, who'd hidden and protected, who'd left pieces of themselves behind in gold and glass and carefully preserved memories. Now those stories belonged to Claire. She just had to survive long enough to understand them. The nursing home's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Claire checked vitals on Mrs. Peterson in room 304. 2 a.m., the deadest part of the night shift, when the building settled into uneasy quiet broken only by monitors beeping and occasional calls for help. Claire's phone vibrated in her pocket. Another text from the unknown number. "You didn't show. Big mistake. I'll be in touch." She ignored it, focused on recording Mrs. Peterson's blood pressure. Stayed professional. Stayed normal. The way Margaret had told her to. But her hands shook as she wrote in the chart. "You okay, honey?" Mrs. Peterson asked, her voice scratchy. "You seem jumpy tonight." "I'm fine. Just tired." Claire forced a smile. "You need anything else?" "Some of whatever you're worried about." "It's eating you up." Claire looked at the elderly woman, sharp-eyed, despite her age. Mrs. Peterson had been a lawyer once, had survived 2 husbands, and raised 5 kids alone after the second one left. She didn't miss much. "Family stuff," Claire admitted. "Nothing I can't handle. Family stuff is never nothing. But you're strong. I can tell. You'll figure it out." If only Mrs. Peterson knew. If only Claire could tell someone, anyone, about what she'd found, about the threats, about how completely her life had transformed in 72 hours. But she couldn't. So she finished her rounds, checked on the 14 patients in her wing, restocked supplies, and tried not to think about Locket's worth millions sitting in a vault 3 hours north. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. She drove home through Saturday morning traffic, exhausted, her mind spinning. The storage unit key was still in her wallet. Whatever Josephine had hidden there, Claire needed to see it. But she couldn't take Lily. Too dangerous if someone really was watching. And she couldn't go alone. Too risky if the threats were real. She needed help. Someone she could trust. But who? She didn't have close friends. Working 2 jobs hadn't left time for building relationships. Her family consisted of Lily and no one else. The lawyers were professional contacts, not allies. She was, as she'd always been, alone. Except, maybe not entirely. Claire pulled into her apartment parking lot and sat in the car, thinking. Then she pulled up her phone and searched for something she'd noticed in Josephine's papers but hadn't paid attention to. There, a business card paper-clipped to one of the insurance documents. Henry Caldwell, security consultant. A Millbrook number. She dialed before she could second-guess herself. A gruff voice answered. "Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, my name is Claire Hastings. I inherited. I know who you are. Been expecting your call." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "You knew my grandmother? Worked for Josephine 35 years. Did security for the shop, the collection. She told me to watch for you. Said you'd need help eventually. How do I know I can trust you? You don't. But your grandmother did, and she wasn't a fool. You got somebody threatening you." Claire hesitated. Then, yes. Anonymous texts. They know about the collection. Henry was quiet for a moment. "You tell the lawyers?" "Yes." "Good. Don't meet with anyone alone. Don't go back to the shop without me." "And Claire? Your grandmother had enemies. People who knew she had something valuable, even if they didn't know what. Those people have been waiting for her to die, so they could make moves. You need to be very careful." "Who are they?" "Long story. You free today? We should meet face to face. I can explain everything your grandmother set up, everything she wanted you to know. I have my daughter. Bring her. Safer if she knows what's happening anyway. Meet me at the Millbrook Library at noon. Public place, lots of witnesses. If I was going to hurt you, I'd suggest somewhere private." The logic was sound, but Claire's instincts screamed caution. "How do I know you're really who you say you are?" "Your grandmother's locket. The one that won't stay closed. Look at the inside of the case, the gold part. There's an engraving. Tell me what it says." Claire pulled the locket from her pocket and looked. Tiny letters etched into the gold. J.H. and H.C. 1989. J.H. and H.C. 1989, she read. Josephine Hartwell and Henry Caldwell. We became friends after I stopped a burglary at her shop. She gave me that locket to engrave as a thank you. Said it was the first piece she'd ever acquired. Cost her $3 an estate sale in 1952. Worth about $50,000 now, but she never sold it. Carried it every day until she gave it to your sister Anna. Anna. You knew Anna? Met her a few times when she visited Josephine. Good girl. Smart. She understood what your grandmother was trying to protect. His voice softened. I'm sorry you lost her. Something in his tone convinced Claire. This man had cared about Josephine, had known Anna, had been part of this secret world her grandmother had built. Noon at the library, she agreed. After they hung up, Claire sat in her car, staring at the engraving she'd never noticed before. 1989, 36 years of friendship. 36 years of Henry Caldwell helping Josephine guard her secrets. She hoped he could help guard hers too. Lily was awake when Claire got home, watching cartoons and eating cereal. How was work? Long. Claire dropped onto the couch beside her. Hey, we need to go back to Millbrook today. Meet someone who knew Grandma Josephine. Lily looked up, interested. Who? A security guard. He says he can help us understand everything. Claire chose her words carefully. But baby, remember what we talked about? About keeping secrets? I haven't told anyone. Promise. Good. Because we might be in danger. Someone's been sending me threatening messages. Lily's eyes widened. Like real danger? Should we call the police? The lawyer already did. But we need to be smart, okay? Stay close to me. Pay attention to who's around us. Don't talk to strangers. They took the train to Millbrook at 10:30, arriving with 20 minutes to spare. The library was a beautiful old Carnegie building with stone steps and tall windows. Inside, it smelled like books and furniture polish, quiet except for the clicking of keyboards in the computer section. Henry Caldwell sat at a table near the back, visible from the entrance. He was older than Claire expected, maybe 70, with white hair and weathered skin. But his eyes were sharp, alert, taking in everything. He stood when they approached. Claire, Lily. He shook their hands firmly. Appreciate you trusting me enough to come. They sat. Henry pulled out a folder, thick with documents. First things first. Your grandmother set up protections for you. Legal structures, security measures, insurance. Everything's documented here. But you need to understand the history, understand why she hid everything the way she did. Why did she? Claire asked. Henry settled back in his chair. Josephine started collecting in 1952, like I told you. Just small pieces at first, things she could afford. But she had an eye for value, could spot quality when dealers missed it. By the 1970s, she'd built something significant. That's when things got complicated. He pulled out a photograph. Young Josephine, maybe 40, standing with a man Claire didn't recognize. This is Marcus Bellamy, art dealer out of New York. He approached Josephine in 1978, wanted to buy her entire collection. Offered her $2 million, huge money back then. She said no. He kept pushing, got aggressive. Finally made threats. What kind of threats? Said if she wouldn't sell, he'd claim she'd acquired pieces illegally. Said he had connections in museums, could make trouble for her. Josephine was terrified. She'd been so careful about Providence. But Marcus knew people would believe him over a small-town shop owner. What happened? She hired lawyers, proved everything was legitimate. But it scared her, made her realize how vulnerable she was. So she shut down the public-facing shop, hid the real collection in the vault, and went quiet. Lived like she had nothing, so people like Marcus would leave her alone. Is Marcus the one threatening me now? Marcus died in 2001, but his son, David Bellamy, runs the family business now. He's been trying to track down your grandmother's collection for years. When she died, he started making inquiries. Henry's expression hardened. I'd bet money he's the one sending you those texts. Claire felt cold. What does he want? To buy the collection or steal it? Whichever's easier. David's not like his father. Marcus was aggressive but followed rules. David's crossed lines, been implicated in shady deals. Nothing proven but rumors. So I'm in actual danger. Potentially, which is why Josephine set up protections. Henry opened the folder. First, she has 3 different law firms on retainer, all with expertise in estate law, art fraud, and criminal defense. They're already paid through the next 5 years. Second, she's got a security company monitoring the shop 24/7. They'll alert police if anyone tries to break in. Third, she's got the collection insured for full replacement value. premiums paid for the next decade. Claire stared at the documents. Josephine had thought of everything. Fourth, Henry continued. She set up a trust structure that makes it very hard for anyone to claim rights to the collection. It's all legally yours, documented 6 ways from Sunday. David Bellamy can't touch it through courts. But he can threaten me. He can try. But you've got resources now. Lawyers who know how to handle people like him. And you've got me. Henry met her eyes. I promised Josephine I'd protect her heir. That's you. I'm not letting David Bellamy or anyone else hurt you or Lily. Lily, who'd been quietly listening, spoke up. Why did Grandma Josephine collect lockets specifically? Why not paintings or jewelry or normal stuff? Henry smiled. Smart question. She told me once that lockets were the most honest form of art. Said paintings could be faked, jewelry could be melted down and remade. But lockets held real pieces of people's lives. Hair, photographs, tiny treasures. Said every locket was proof that someone loved someone else enough to carry them close to their heart. He pulled out another photo, Josephine in old age, standing in front of the vault displays. After your mother left, after Josephine lost Rebecca and didn't know if she'd ever see her granddaughters, the lockets became even more important. She said they reminded her that love persisted even when families broke, that mothers and daughters always found ways to hold each other close, even across distance. Claire's eyes stung. She loved my mother, desperately. Rebecca's leaving nearly destroyed her. But Josephine never gave up hope they'd reconcile someday. They didn't. My mother died when I was 16. Never mentioned Josephine once. I know. Your grandmother knew, too. She got the obituary, sent flowers anonymously. She was at the funeral, standing in the back where you wouldn't see her. Claire couldn't breathe. She was there. Wanted to approach you, talk to you and Anna. But she was afraid. Afraid you'd reject her like Rebecca had. So she watched from a distance, made sure you were okay, and waited. She should have helped us. Claire's voice broke. We struggled so hard. Anna died because we couldn't afford better treatment. Josephine could have saved her. Henry's expression turned pained. She didn't know Anna was sick until it was too late. Anna didn't tell her. By the time Josephine found out, when Anna showed up at the shop searching for family history, the cancer had already spread. Josephine offered to pay for everything, experimental treatments, whatever Anna needed. Anna refused. What? What? Pride, maybe. Fear of being obligated. I don't know. But Anna made Josephine promise not to contact you, not to tell you about the collection. Said you'd been through enough, that you didn't need the complication. She made Josephine wait until after she died. Claire put her head in her hands. Anna had known about the fortune that could have saved her, had refused it, had made their grandmother promise to keep Claire in the dark. Why would she do that? Love, Henry said simply. She didn't want you to feel guilty. Didn't want you to blame yourself for not knowing, for not being able to help. Anna knew she was dying. She wanted you to remember her without that weight. Lily reached over and took Claire's hand. Claire squeezed back, trying to process everything. There's more you need to know, Henry said gently. The storage unit Josephine left you, it contains personal items, letters, journals, photographs, everything about your mother, about what happened between her and Josephine. Anna read them before she died, said they explained everything. Will you come with me? To the storage unit. That's why I'm here. They left the library together, Henry leading them to a battered pickup truck. The storage facility was on the edge of town, a collection of anonymous metal buildings behind a chain-link fence. Unit 47 was climate-controlled, Henry explained, as he unlocked the heavy door. Josephine kept anything that might degrade in here. Documents, photographs, textiles. The unit was larger than Claire expected, maybe 10 feet by 20, lined with shelves and filing cabinets. Boxes labeled in Josephine's careful handwriting. Rebecca, childhood. Rebecca, teenage years. Rebecca, adult. And in the corner, 2 boxes labeled Anna and Claire. Claire opened the one marked with her name. Inside were photographs she'd never seen. Baby pictures, toddler snapshots, school photos. Her entire childhood, documented by a grandmother who'd watched from afar. She hired investigators, Henry admitted. Not to interfere, just to know you were okay. She got copies of school pictures, attended Claire's plays from the back row, followed your lives however she could. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt sad, evidence of a love that hadn't known how to express itself except through distance and documentation. Lily found something in the Rebecca boxes. Mom, look at this. It was a journal, thick, bound in leather. Rebecca's name embossed on the cover. Claire opened it carefully. The first entry was dated April 1973. I'm 23 years old, and I just became a mother. Claire is perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, Mom's eyes. But I can't do this. Can't raise her here. Can't let her grow up in this house with these secrets. Claire's hand shook as she turned pages. Mom showed me the vault today. Millions of dollars in lockets, she says. Our future, our security. But all I see is obsession. She cares more about dead women's jewelry than she does about living people. More about preserving the past than building a future. I try to tell her I'm scared. Scared of being trapped here forever. Scared of becoming like her. Alone except for objects and memories. She didn't understand. Said the collection was her life's work. That someday I'd appreciate what she built. But I don't want millions in lockets. I want a normal life. I want Claire to grow up free, not buried under the weight of all this history. The next entry was dated 3 weeks later. I'm leaving, taking Claire and running. Mom will never forgive me, but I can't stay. The collection consumes everything. She barely sleeps, barely eats. Just catalogs and documents and acquires. I won't let Claire grow up thinking that's normal. I told Mom I'm going to visit friends in New York. I'm not coming back. Maybe someday she'll understand. Maybe someday I'll be able to explain. But right now, I just need to get us out. Claire looked up at Henry. She was scared of the collection. Thought it was making Josephine obsessive. Was it? Lily asked. Henry sighed. Maybe. Josephine poured herself into the collection after her husband died in 1970. It gave her purpose, something to control when everything else was falling apart. But Rebecca saw it differently. Saw a mother who valued objects over people. Was Rebecca right? Both of them were right. The collection was Josephine's coping mechanism, her way of dealing with loss. But it also became a wall between her and the people she loved. She didn't realize it until Rebecca was already gone. Claire kept reading. New York, July 1973. Found a tiny apartment in Queens. It's nothing like home. Dirty, cramped, loud. But it's ours. No lockets worth millions. No vaults full of dead people's memories. Just me and Claire building something real. Mom sent letters. I burned them without reading. Can't look back. Can't let guilt drag us home. Money's tight. Jobs are hard with a baby. But we're managing. We're free. The entries continued through years of struggle. Rebecca working multiple jobs, raising Claire alone, making impossible choices. But she never went back. Never reconciled. The final entry was dated October 1989, just months before Rebecca died. Claire is 16 now. Smart, strong, nothing like me at that age. She doesn't know about Mom, about the collection, about any of it. I told her my mother died when I was young. Easier than explaining the truth. I'm sick. Doctors say it's cancer, say it's bad. I think about calling Mom, about reaching out before it's too late. But what would I say? That I was wrong? That I should have stayed? I wasn't wrong. The collection would have consumed us both. Claire has a real life because we left. But I wish I could have found a middle ground. Wish I could have kept my mother and my freedom. Wish I could have given Claire a grandmother. Too late now. I'll die with this secret, and maybe that's for the best. Let Claire remember me without complications. Let her build her life without the weight of Hartwell history. The journal ended there. Claire closed it, tears streaming down her face. She died protecting me from this, Claire whispered. Died thinking the collection would ruin my life the way she thought it ruined Josephine's. But she was wrong, Lily said quietly. The collection didn't ruin Grandma, Josephine. Losing Mom did. The collection was just what Josephine had left after everyone else was gone. Henry nodded. Smart girl. That's exactly right. Josephine didn't collect lockets because she was obsessed. She collected them because they were all she had, proof that love existed even when her own family had walked away. Claire wiped her eyes. What happened after Rebecca died? Josephine said she was at the funeral. She saw you and Anna, saw you were managing, and made the hardest decision of her life. She let you go, didn't interfere, didn't reach out, didn't burden you with complicated family history. Just watched from distance and waited. Waited for what? For the right time. For you to be old enough to understand. For circumstances to change. Henry pulled out another document. She updated her, every year. Always left everything to you and Anna. But she kept hoping she'd get to tell you herself, that someday you'd be ready to hear her side of the story. Anna was ready. Anna came looking for answers about family history, found Josephine, and understood. They had 2 years together before Anna died. Not enough time, but something. Josephine treasured those visits. Claire looked at the boxes of Rebecca's things, at the journals and photographs, and evidence of lives lived in parallel. Josephine building her collection, Rebecca building her independence, never finding a way back to each other. I don't want to make the same mistake, Claire said. Don't want to let fear or pride or anything else keep me from the people I love. Lily's all I have. I can't let this collection come between us. It won't, Lily said. I'm not scared of it. I think it's amazing. All these women's stories preserved, protected. It's like Grandma Josephine was a guardian of memory. Henry smiled. Josephine would have loved hearing you say that. They spent another hour in the storage unit, going through boxes, piecing together the story of 3 generations of women who'd all wanted the same things: safety, love, freedom, but had found such different paths to them. Finally, Henry locked up and drove them back to the train station. As they said goodbye, he handed Claire another business card. My cell number's on there. You call me anytime, day or night, if you feel unsafe or if David Bellamy contacts you again. And Claire, your grandmother left you detailed instructions about what to do with the collection. They're in the vault, in a file marked for Claire's eyes only. You should read them before making any decisions. What does she want me to do with it? That's for you to discover. But I'll tell you this, she didn't spend 60 years building that collection just to have it sold off and scattered. She had a vision. She wanted it to mean something. On the train ride home, Lily dozed against Claire's shoulder while Claire stared out at the darkening landscape. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Stop talking to Caldwell. He's lying to you, trying to control you. Meet with me or you'll regret it. Final warning. Claire screenshot it and forwarded it to Margaret Chun and Henry both, then blocked the number. Let them try, she thought. Let David Bellamy or whoever was threatening her try to intimidate her. She had lawyers now, security, Henry watching her back. And more importantly, she understood what Josephine had built and why. This wasn't just about money or valuable objects. It was about preserving stories that might otherwise be lost. About honoring the ways women across centuries had loved and protected and remembered. About refusing to let fear win. When they got home, Claire made dinner. Actual groceries she bought instead of ramen and rice. She could afford it now. Could afford a lot of things. But she didn't splurge, didn't change their life dramatically. Not yet. Not until she understood the full scope of what she was dealing with. That night, after Lily went to bed, Claire pulled out her laptop and started researching museum collections, private foundations, ways to preserve historical artifacts while making them accessible to the public. If Josephine had wanted the collection scattered and sold, she would have made that clear. Instead, she'd left it intact, protected, waiting for someone who would understand its value beyond price tags and auction estimates. She'd left it for someone who would see the stories, not just the objects. For someone like Claire, over the next 2 weeks, Claire made 3 more trips to Millbrook, each time with Lily and Henry, each time learning more about the collection and Josephine's plans. The file marked for Claire's eyes only contained Josephine's vision, a museum and research center dedicated to preserving women's material culture. Not just lockets, but the stories they represented. A place where historians could study social history through personal objects. Where families could donate heirlooms knowing they'd be preserved and honored. Where the collection could grow and serve rather than simply exist. Josephine had even acquired a building for it, an old textile mill on the edge of Millbrook, purchased in 2015, renovated but never opened. Everything was ready. The displays designed, the security installed, the educational programs outlined. She'd just been waiting for the right person to run it. She wanted you to finish what she started, Henry said, showing Claire the blueprints. The Hartwell Center for Women's History. She had grants lined up, partnerships with universities, an endowment to fund operations. Everything except someone to make it real. Claire walked through the empty mill, seeing Josephine's vision. Gallery spaces for rotating displays. Climate-controlled storage for the collection. A research library. Educational classrooms. A restoration workshop where people could learn the crafts Josephine had mastered. It was beautiful, ambitious, exactly what someone with $471 million in historical artifacts should do. But it was also terrifying. Claire was a nursing home worker, not a museum director. She had a high school diploma, not a degree in art history or museum studies. What did she know about running something like this? You don't have to do it alone, Margaret Chin said when Claire expressed these doubts. Josephine left funds to hire staff, consultants, experts. You'd be the director and vision, but you'd have a whole team supporting you. Why me, though? Why not someone qualified? Because Josephine didn't want someone qualified. She wanted someone who understood what the collection really meant. Someone who knew what it was like to struggle, to make impossible choices, to protect what mattered most. Margaret paused. Someone who'd choose groceries over toys with their last $20. Claire stared at her. How did you know about that? Josephine told me. Said it was the moment she knew for sure you were the right person. Anna had told her that story. About little Claire at a family reunion getting $20 from a distant relative and buying food for her mother instead of candy for herself. The memory was hazy, but Claire remembered. Remembered being maybe 7. Remembered her mother crying over the bag of groceries. Remembered feeling proud that she'd helped. Josephine said anyone who understood sacrifice and love at 7 years old would understand what she was trying to preserve. Margaret continued. The collection isn't about wealth. It's about memory, about the ways women have always found a hold on to what matters. You get that in your bones. That's why it's yours. The decision formed slowly, over days of consideration and doubt and late-night research. Claire kept working in the nursing home, kept living in their small apartment, kept pretending life was normal. But she also started planning. Started meeting with the consultants Josephine had lined up. Started learning about museum operations and historical preservation and grant administration. Started understanding that maybe she could do this, not because she was qualified, but because she understood what it meant to protect something precious against impossible odds. She'd been doing it her whole life, protecting Lily, protecting Anna when she was sick, protecting their small life from constant threats of eviction and poverty and disaster. This was just a different kind of protection, a bigger scale, but the same essential task, keeping safe what mattered. 6 weeks after inheriting the collection, Claire stood in front of the Millbrook Town Council requesting permits to open the Hartwell Center for Women's History. David Bellamy was there, sitting in the back row, glaring at her. He'd stopped sending threatening texts after Margaret's lawyers sent a cease and desist letter, but he hadn't given up. He'd filed objections to the museum plans, claimed the building wasn't suitable, argued the collection should be sold to established museums rather than shown in some vanity project. Claire ignored him, focused on her presentation, explained Josephine's vision, the economic benefits to Millbrook, the educational value, the partnerships with universities already committed to supporting the center. The council voted unanimously in favor. David stormed out. Henry, sitting in the front row, smiled. After the meeting, reporters wanted interviews. The story of a struggling single mother inheriting a fortune and choosing to build a museum rather than live in luxury was apparently newsworthy. Claire kept it simple. My grandmother spent 60 years protecting these stories. I'm just making sure they get told. But privately, to Lily that night, she said something different. I'm scared I'll mess this up, that I'm not smart enough or educated enough or capable enough. Lily looked up from her homework. Mom, you raised me alone since I was a baby. You worked 2 jobs for years. You took care of Aunt Anna when she was dying. You've done impossible things already. This is just a different kind of impossible. What did you get so wise? I have a good teacher. The Hartwell Center for Women's History opened 8 months later, On what would have been Josephine's 92nd birthday. The exhibits told stories through lockets. Marie Antoinette's children, Russian empresses, Victorian mourning practices, ordinary women preserving memories of extraordinary love. Each display included historical context, authentication documentation, and personal narratives reconstructed from letters and journals. The restoration workshop offered classes teaching traditional techniques. The research library welcomed scholars studying material culture and social history. The educational programs brought school groups to learn about women's lives across centuries. And in the center of the main gallery, a special exhibit, 4 Generations, the Hartwell Women. Josephine's locket from 1952, the first piece she ever acquired. Rebecca's journal explaining why she left. Anna's research notes about finding their grandmother. And Claire's story about inheriting not just objects but responsibility, not just wealth but purpose. David Bellamy showed up on opening day, trying one last time. "This collection belongs in a real museum," he told reporters. "This woman has no credentials, no expertise. But she is something you don't," Henry interrupted, stepping between David and the cameras. "She is Josephine's trust, and that's the only credential that matters." The opening was packed. Townspeople, historians, journalists, collectors. Everyone wanted to see the collection that had been hidden for 60 years. Claire gave the dedicatory speech standing next to Lily, both of them wearing lockets Josephine had left them. Claire's contained photographs of Josephine and Rebecca together in better days. Lily's held a tiny painting of all 4 generations of Hartwell women, commissioned by Josephine before she died. "My grandmother taught me that love persists even when families break," Claire said. "That memory matters even when the people are gone. That women's stories deserve to be preserved and honored, not locked away or forgotten." She paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. This center isn't just about valuable objects. It's about the lives those objects represent. Every locket here tells a story of love, romantic love, maternal love, grief, hope, connection. Together, they tell the larger story of how women have always found ways to hold close what matters most. Josephine Hartwell spent 60 years building this collection alone, but she didn't want it to stay alone. She wanted it shared, studied, celebrated. So that's what we're doing. This is her gift to the world. $471 million worth of proof that love and memory endure. The applause was thunderous. Claire saw tears on faces throughout the crowd. Saw historians already taking notes. Saw school kids pressing close to displays, fascinated by the tiny treasures and the stories they held. Saw what Josephine had envisioned becoming real. That night, after the crowds left and the center closed, Claire walked through the quiet galleries with Henry. "She'd be proud," he said. "This is exactly what she hoped for. I wish she could see it. Who says she can't?" Henry gestured around the beautifully lit space, the carefully preserved lockets, the stories honored and displayed. "This is Josephine seeing it. Through you, through what you chose to build." Claire stopped in front of the Hartwell family exhibit. 4 generations of women, for different paths, all connected by love and loss and the determination to protect what mattered. Josephine, building beauty from grief. Rebecca, choosing freedom over fortune. Anna, bridging the gap between them. And Claire, bringing it all together into something neither Josephine nor Rebecca could have imagined. "I used to resent her," Claire admitted, "for not helping when we were struggling, for watching from distance instead of being present. But I understand now. She was trapped by her own fears, her own pain. She did the best she could with what she knew. That's all any of us can do. She gave me more than money. She gave me purpose. Gave me a way to honor Anna's memory, Mom's sacrifice, Josephine's vision. This center, it's all of them. All of us." The locket around Claire's neck sprang open. It still did that sometimes, though less frequently now. She looked at the photograph and sighed. Josephine and Rebecca smiling together before everything broke. The last good day, but maybe not the last. Maybe this, the center opening, the stories being told, the collection finding its purpose. Maybe this is a good day too. A different kind, built on understanding rather than presence. on forgiveness rather than perfection. Claire pressed the locket closed. This time it stayed shut. She took it as a sign that Josephine's spirit, wherever it was, had finally found peace. But peace, Claire would soon learn, was fragile. 3 months after the center's successful opening, things began to unravel in ways she hadn't anticipated. The museum was thriving. Attendance exceeded projections, university partnerships were flourishing, and the restoration workshops had waiting lists months long. On the surface, everything Josephine had envisioned was coming to life beautifully. Then the lawsuit arrived. Claire was in her office at the center. She'd quit the nursing home 2 months ago, finally accepting that this was her life now, when Margaretchen called. "We have a problem." David Bellamy filed suit, claiming Josephine wasn't of sound mind when she updated her will. He's arguing that the collection should be liquidated and proceeds distributed to extended family members. What extended family? There isn't anyone else. He's found people. Second cousins, third cousins, people who share a great-great-grandparent with Josephine. 19 of them total, all claiming they deserve a portion of the estate. Claire felt sick. Can they win? No. We have extensive documentation of Josephine's mental competency. But David's smart. He's not trying to win. He's trying to force you into a settlement. Make the legal fees so expensive that you'd rather pay them off than fight. How much would fighting cost? Could be $500,000 or more if it goes to trial. The estate can cover it. Josephine left funds specifically for legal defense. But Claire, there's something else. David's made filings requesting immediate access to the collection for independent appraisal. If a judge grants that, he could send his own people into the vault. The thought of David Bellamy's representatives touching Josephine's carefully curated collection made Claire's hands shake. Can we stop it? We're filing oppositions now. But you need to prepare for this to get ugly. David's hired a PR firm. They're already planting stories suggesting you're unqualified, that the collection is at risk under your management, that valuable pieces should be in real museums. After they hung up, Claire sat at her desk, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. She thought the hard part was over. Thought opening the center meant she'd won, that Josephine's vision was safe. She'd been naive. Her office door opened. Lily appeared. She came to the center after school most days now, doing homework in the research library or helping with educational programs. At almost 13, she'd become the center's unofficial youth ambassador, giving tours to school groups and explaining Lockets to visitors with infectious enthusiasm. "Mom, you look terrible. What happened?" Claire explained about the lawsuit. Lily listened silently, her expression growing darker. "That's not fair. Grandma Josephine left everything to you. Those people didn't even know her. Fair doesn't always matter in court. So what do? We fight. What else can we do?" But fighting was expensive and exhausting. Over the next weeks, Claire found herself spending more time with lawyers than with the collection. Depositions, document production, endless meetings about legal strategy. The museum's opening success started to feel distant, overshadowed by the constant threat of David Bellamy's challenges. Then Henry called with worse news. Someone tried to break into the vault last night. Security system caught them, police responded, but whoever it was got away. Left behind professional lock-picking tools. Claire's blood ran cold. David can't prove it, but the timing's suspicious. Right when he's arguing the collection needs independent oversight. I've upgraded security, added cameras, motion sensors, reinforced the vault door. But Claire, I think this is just the beginning. David's testing defenses, seeing what he can get away with. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark bedroom of the apartment she still hadn't left. Despite being able to afford anything, she'd kept their modest home, afraid that visible wealth would attract more attention, and thought about Josephine. 60 years of hiding, protecting, living in fear that someone would take what she'd built. And now, barely a year after her death, those fears were proving justified. Claire got up and pulled out the boxes of Rebecca's journals she'd brought home from the storage unit. Started reading entries she'd skipped before, looking for guidance, for understanding of how her mother had dealt with impossible choices. She found an entry from 1985. Claire asked me today, why we don't have grandparents like other kids. I told her my parents died when I was young. The lie gets easier every time I tell it. But I wonder sometimes if I'm doing the right thing. Mom has money. Mom has so much money. We're living in a one-bedroom apartment with water stains on the ceiling while she sits on a fortune in Lockets. I could call her, could swallow my pride, and ask for help. But then what? Claire grows up thinking wealth means obsession, that security requires isolation, that loving things matters more than loving people. I can't let her become like Mom. So we struggle. And I tell myself it's building character, teaching Claire resilience. But mostly I'm just scared. Scared of being pulled back into that world of valuable objects and constant anxiety about protecting them. Scared of losing myself the way I think Mom lost herself. Claire closed the journal. Rebecca had been afraid of exactly what was happening now. The way protecting wealth could consume everything else. The way security required vigilance that turned into paranoia. The way fighting to keep what you had could become your entire existence. Was that Claire's future? Years of lawsuits and security threats and constantly looking over her shoulder? Was this what Josephine had sentenced her to by leaving her the collection? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can't win this. Josephine couldn't protect it. You can't either. Sell while you still can. Claire blocked the number, but the message haunted her. Maybe they were right. Maybe she should negotiate a settlement with David, liquidate part of the collection, take enough money to secure Lily's future, and walk away from the rest. But then she thought about the school group that had visited yesterday. 30 kids from a struggling district, many of them from immigrant families, standing transfixed in front of the exhibits. One girl had spent 20 minutes studying a locket that had belonged to a 19th century seamstress. Not famous, not royal, just a working woman who'd carried a photograph of her daughter. She was like my grandma, the girl had whispered to Claire. My grandma sews too. Worked so hard. Nobody ever put her story in a museum. That's what the center was for. Not just preserving famous women's lockets, but honoring the ordinary ones too. The seamstresses and maids and factory workers whose stories mattered just as much as queens and empresses. If Claire liquidated the collection, those stories would scatter, end up in private holdings or sold separately to collectors who cared only about value, not meaning. She couldn't let that happen. The next morning, Claire called Margaret. I want to fight. Whatever it costs, however long it takes. We're not selling anything. You're sure? This could drag on for years. I'm sure. Josephine protected this collection for 6 decades. I can protect it for however long it takes. The legal battle intensified. David's lawyers demanded access to financial records, questioned every decision Claire had made about the center, challenged her authority to make acquisitions or loans. They deposed Henry, Margaret, even tried to depose Lily before Margaret shut that down. And through it all, the museum had to keep operating. Claire couldn't let the legal fight consume everything. She had staff to manage, programs to run, visitors to serve. Some days she felt split in half. Part of her in courtrooms and lawyers' offices, part of her in the galleries trying to fulfill Josephine's vision. 6 months into the lawsuit, a hearing was scheduled to determine whether David's relatives had any legitimate claim to the estate. Claire sat in the courtroom while lawyers argued over Josephine's mental state, the validity of her will, whether blood relatives deserve consideration despite being explicitly excluded. David Bellamy sat across the aisle, confident and smug. He brought 3 of the supposed relatives, distant cousins who'd never met Josephine but suddenly cared deeply about her legacy. The judge was the same Judge Morrison who'd handled preliminary matters, stern, no nonsense, clearly tired of family squabbles over money. Mr. Fitzgerald, she said to David's lawyer, you're asking me to overturn the clear wishes of a woman who spent years carefully planning her estate. On what grounds? Your Honor, Mrs. Hartwell's obsession with her collection suggests diminished capacity in her final years. She lived in isolation, barely maintained social connections, devoted her entire life to acquiring objects. This behavior pattern indicates someone not a sound mind. Claire's lawyer, a sharp woman named Sandra Torres, stood immediately. Your Honor, the opposition is arguing that because Josephine Hartwell was dedicated to her life's work, she must have been incompetent. By that logic, any scholar, collector, or researcher who focuses intensely on their field would be considered mentally unfit. We have psychiatric evaluations from 3 separate doctors, all conducted within 18 months of Mrs. Hartwell's death, all confirming complete mental competency. I've reviewed those evaluations, Judge Morrison said. They're thorough and convincing. Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have evidence beyond your opinion that collecting is obsessive? We have testimony from neighbors who describe Mrs. Hartwell as reclusive, paranoid about security. Living alone and valuing privacy doesn't indicate incompetence. Many people choose solitude without being mentally compromised. The judge flipped through documents. I'm also troubled by the timing here. These relatives claiming interest. Where were they while Mrs. Hartwell was alive? Where were they at her funeral? Where were their expressions of concern about her mental state when there was still time to help her? David's lawyer tried to respond, but Judge Morrison cut him off. This looks like exactly what it is. Distant relatives emerging after death to claim money from an estate they had no relationship with. Mrs. Hartwell made her wishes explicitly clear. She wanted her collection preserved and her great niece to manage it. Absent compelling evidence of incompetence, which I do not see here, this court will respect those wishes. Motion denied. Claire nearly sobbed with relief. Sandra squeezed her hand under the table. But David wasn't finished. As they left the courthouse, he intercepted Claire on the steps. You think you've won? His voice was low, angry. This was just the first round. I have other options, other strategies. That collection is worth too much to let some unqualified nobody keep it locked away in a small-town museum. Henry stepped between them. Walk away, Bellamy. Your guard dog can't protect you forever. David looked directly at Claire. Josephine died alone because she chose objects over people. You're making the same mistake. Keep this up and you'll end up just like her. Isolated, paranoid, and eventually dead with nothing but lockets for company. He walked away before Claire could respond. Don't listen to him, Henry said. He's trying to get in your head. But the words had already landed. David was right about one thing. Josephine had died alone. The collection had given her purpose, but cost her family. Was Claire heading down the same path? She looked at Lily, standing quietly beside her. Her daughter had given up normalcy for this, had left their regular life behind to help run a museum, to live with security threats and legal battles, to carry the weight of Josephine's legacy. Baby, are you okay with all this? Claire asked. With everything that's happened since we inherited the collection? Lily considered the question seriously. It's scary sometimes, but it's also important. Those lockets, they matter. The stories matter. And yeah, some people want to take it from us or break it apart, but that just means we have to protect it harder. I worry I'm repeating Josephine's mistakes, letting this consume our lives. It's not the same, Mom. Grandma Josephine was alone because her family left her. We're together. You're not choosing the collection over me. We're both choosing to protect it. That's different. Claire hugged her daughter tight there on the courthouse steps. When did you get so wise? I told you. Good teacher. Despite winning in court, the pressure didn't ease. David filed appeals, requested new hearings, continued his media campaign suggesting the center was mismanaged. The PR firm he'd hired planted stories, questioning Claire's credentials, implying she'd somehow manipulated Josephine into leaving her the collection. One article in a Connecticut newspaper was particularly vicious. Unqualified heir sits on fortune while museums beg for access. The story quoted anonymous museum professionals criticizing Claire's lack of formal education, suggesting valuable pieces were at risk under her care. It mentioned the attempted break-in, spinning it as evidence of inadequate security rather than criminal behavior. Claire read it with growing anger and despair. Everything she'd worked for, learning museum operations, hiring qualified staff, building educational programs, dismissed because she didn't have the right credentials. But then the response started. First from the university partners who worked with the center. Letters to the editor praising the Hartwell Center's research programs, educational outreach, professional standards. Then from historians who'd used the collection for scholarship, testifying to its excellent preservation and accessibility. And finally, from visitors, hundreds of them writing letters and posting online about what the center meant to them. The working-class woman who'd brought her grandmother's locket to have it restored and documented. The high school student whose research project on Victoria mourning practices had won state competitions. The elderly man who'd found his great-grandmother's locket in the collection, donated by her family decades ago, and wept to see it preserved and honored. "You're building something real," Margaret told Claire as they compiled the testimonials. "David can hire all the PR firms he wants, but he can't manufacture this kind of genuine support." The center's first anniversary approached. Claire had initially planned a quiet celebration. Too much was still uncertain with the legal battles ongoing. But the staff convinced her otherwise. "We should celebrate," her curator, Dr. Emily Zhang, argued. "Show everyone that despite the attacks, we're thriving, that the collection is safe and serving its purpose." So they planned an anniversary gala. Invitations went to donors, university partners, museum professionals, community members, and, prominently, to every media outlet that had questioned Claire's management. The night of the gala, the center glowed with light and energy. The galleries were full of people admiring the collection, attending lectures, watching restoration demonstrations. New exhibits had been installed. A powerful display on mourning lockets from the Civil War, another showcasing suffragette jewelry, a third exploring lockets from immigrant communities. Claire gave a speech to the assembled crowd, Lily standing beside her. 1 year ago, this center opened with a mission: to preserve and share women's stories through the objects they carried close to their hearts. Some people questioned whether that mission was valid, whether I was qualified to lead it, whether the collection wouldn't be better served scattered across established institutions. She paused, looking around the room. "But this year, we've served over 50,000 visitors. We've partnered with 12 universities on research projects. We've restored and documented over 300 family lockets donated by community members. We've taught restoration skills to 200 students. And we've honored the stories of thousands of women whose lives might otherwise have been forgotten." Josephine Hartwell didn't build this collection to have it locked away in climate-controlled storage where only scholars could access it. She built it to share stories, to teach, to connect past and present. That's what we're doing. That's what we'll continue doing, regardless of who tries to stop us. The applause was sustained and genuine. Claire saw tears on faces throughout the crowd. People who understood what the center meant, what was at stake in protecting it. She also saw David Bellamy standing at the back of the room. He'd come despite not being invited, probably looking for ammunition for his next attack. But for once, Claire didn't care. Let him see the center thriving. Let him see what Josephine's vision had become in the hands of someone who cared about stories more than price tags. After the formal program ended and the crowd began to mingle, an elderly woman approached Claire. She was impeccably dressed, clearly wealthy, with sharp eyes that reminded Claire of Josephine. "Miss Hastings, I'm Catherine Whitmore. Josephine was my second cousin. We hadn't spoken in 40 years. Claire tensed, wondering if this was another relative coming to claim the estate. But Catherine smiled. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to apologize. My family, the Whitmores, we shunned Josephine after Rebecca left. Believed the gossip that she was unstable, obsessed. We were wrong." She looked around the center. "This is extraordinary. Josephine tried to tell us what she was building, but we didn't listen. We thought she'd wasted her life on trinkets. We didn't understand she was preserving history. Why are you telling me this?" Claire asked carefully. "Because David Bellamy has been contacting Whitmore family members, trying to recruit us for his lawsuit. He thinks because we're blood relatives, we'll support his claim. But I've seen what you've done here, seen how you've honored Josephine's work. If you need character witnesses, if you need family testimony supporting Josephine's competence and her clear intentions, you have it. From me and from 6 other Whitmores I've already spoken to." Claire felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know. Josephine was always the strongest of us, the most visionary. We should have recognized that while she was alive. The least we can do is support her heir now. Catherine wasn't the only surprise that evening. Dr. James Morrison, director of one of the country's most prestigious decorative arts museums, approached Claire with an unexpected offer. Miss Hastings, I'll be direct. I've been watching your center with great interest. The quality of your work is exceptional. Your documentation standards, your conservation practices, your educational programming. It exceeds what many established museums achieve. Thank you, Claire said, unsure where this was going. My institution would like to partner with you on a traveling exhibition. Select pieces from your collection paired with items from ours, touring major museums across the country. Full insurance, professional handling, academic catalog, the works. It would raise the Hartwell Center's national profile significantly. Why would you help us? I thought most museums wanted the collection broken up and distributed. Dr. Morrison shook his head. Some do, but I believe in Josephine Hartwell's vision. Collections like yours, built with passion and expertise, focused on underrepresented stories. These are invaluable. We need more of them, not fewer. I'd rather partner with you than compete with you. The partnership would be huge. Validation from the museum establishment, proof that the center belonged in conversations about serious scholarship and preservation. I'll need to discuss it with my board, but yes, I'm very interested. As Dr. Morrison walked away, Henry appeared at Claire's elbow. Big night. Bigger than I expected. Did you see David leave? About 20 minutes ago. Looked unhappy. The New York Times. Claire still couldn't quite believe it. A full feature on the center, on the Working Women's Lockets exhibition, on how a former nursing home worker had built one of the country's most innovative museums. The interview went well. The photographer posed Claire in front of a display case containing a locket that had belonged to a textile mill worker in 1890. Inside was a photograph of her 4 children, taken on the only day she could afford to have them all together. Why focus on working women? The reporter asked. Claire thought about her years waiting tables, working overnight shifts, choosing between groceries and gas. Because their stories matter just as much as queens and empresses. Maybe more, because they had to fight harder to preserve even the smallest piece of beauty or memory. Every locket here represents a woman who worked herself to exhaustion, but still found a way to carry love close to her heart. After the interview, Claire retreated to her office. The house she'd moved into felt like home now, but she still kept an office at the center, a small space overlooking the main gallery where she could work and think. Her phone buzzed. Margaret Chun, need to talk. Good news. Call when you can. Claire dialed immediately. What's the good news? The Whitmore family wants to make a major donation to the center. Catherine Whitmore convinced her siblings and cousins to pool resources. They're offering $5 million for an endowment. No strings attached, just supporting Josephine's legacy. $5 million. Claire sat down hard. What? Guilt mostly. Catherine said the family treated Josephine terribly, excluded her for being different, for choosing an unconventional life. They want to make amends. And Claire, there's more. 3 other collectors have contacted me about donating their own locket collections to the Hartwell Center. They trust what you've built. They want their pieces to be part of it. After they hung up, Claire walked through the galleries. 2 years ago, this had all been a dream in Josephine's mind. Now, it was real, thriving, growing, becoming something even bigger than what Josephine had envisioned. But success brought new challenges. The center needed more space, more staff, more resources to handle the growing collection and educational programs. Claire had been considering expansion options, but everything felt overwhelming. Mom, Lily appeared in the doorway again. There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal about Aunt Anna. Claire's heart skipped. Anna had been gone for 3 years, but the grief still ambushed her sometimes. Who is it? She said her name is Dr. Rachel Foster. She was Anna's oncologist. Claire found Dr. Foster waiting in the lobby, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair. They shook hands, and Claire led her to a quiet corner. I'm sorry to just show up, Dr. Foster said. but I saw the article about you in the Connecticut paper about the museum, and I realized I never gave you something Anna left with me." She pulled an envelope from her bag. "Anna gave this to me 2 weeks before she died. Made me promise to deliver it to you, but only after you'd found Josephine, after you'd seen the collection. She was very specific about the timing." Claire took the envelope with shaking hands. Anna's handwriting on the front. "For Claire, when she's ready." "Anna talked about you constantly," Dr. Foster continued, "about how strong you were, how you'd raised her when you were barely more than a child yourself. She was so proud of you, and she was so certain you'd figure out what to do with Josephine's legacy." After Dr. Foster left, Claire sat in her office with the envelope unopened for 20 minutes. Finally, she broke the seal. Inside was a letter, several pages in Anna's careful handwriting. "Dear Claire, if you're reading this, it means you found Josephine. You discovered the collection, and knowing you, you're probably overwhelmed and questioning whether you're doing the right thing. Stop questioning. You are. I need to explain why I kept secret from you. Why I met with Josephine and didn't tell you. Why I made her promise not to contact you until after I was gone. When I was first diagnosed, I was terrified, not just of dying, but of leaving you alone. You'd already raised me, already sacrificed so much. The thought of burdening you with my medical bills, my care, my grief, it was unbearable. Then I started researching our family history, looking for connections, for roots. I was trying to understand where we came from, who we were beyond just the two of us struggling to survive." Good. Claire watched the crowd, scholars and community members, donors and students, all united in appreciation for what Josephine had built and what the center had become. This is what she wanted, isn't it? The collection alive and serving people. This is exactly what she wanted. And Claire, she'd be so proud of you. You took her legacy and made it better, more accessible, more meaningful. You did what she couldn't, opened it to the world without losing its soul. 3 days later, David Bellamy dropped his lawsuit. No explanation, no settlement, just a one-line filing withdrawing all claims. Margaret called with the news, her voice jubilant. "It's over. He's done." "Why? What changed?" "My guess. The anniversary gala. He saw the center thriving, saw the community support, saw that he couldn't win in the court of public opinion, even if he might have won legally. And with Catherine Whitmore and other family members prepared to testify against him, his case was falling apart. Claire sat down, overwhelmed. "It's really over?" "The lawsuit is. You could try again, but I doubt it. You've established yourself as the rightful steward of the collection. You've built something sustainable and valuable. David's best move now is to back off before he damages his own reputation further." After they hung up, Claire went to find Lily. Her daughter was in the research library, helping a graduate student locate documents for her dissertation on 19th century women's material culture. "It's over," Claire said. "David dropped the lawsuit." Lily's face lit up. "We won. We won." They hugged, and Claire felt the tension of the past months finally releasing. They'd survived. The collection was safe. The center was thriving. Josephine's legacy was secure. That night, Claire returned to the apartment she'd finally decided to leave. She'd found a small house near the center. Nothing extravagant, but more space than they'd ever had, with a yard for Lily and a separate studio where Claire could work on personal projects. She packed boxes of their belongings, marking each one carefully. In the bottom of her closet, she found the small jewelry box where this had all started, where Anna's locket had refused to stay closed, where the mystery had begun. The locket was there, gleaming softly in the dim light. Claire picked it up and opened it. The photograph of young Josephine and baby Rebecca looked back at her, eternal and unchanging. But this time, when Claire closed the locket, it stayed shut. Didn't spring open. Didn't fight her. Whatever message it had been trying to send, Claire had finally received it. She tucked the locket into her pocket and continued packing, ready to move forward into a future Josephine had made possible but couldn't have predicted. A future where women's stories were preserved and celebrated, where a collection built in isolation now connected thousands of people, where 4 generations of Hartwell women's struggles and triumphs had created something beautiful and lasting. The inheritance hadn't been just lockets or money. It had been possibility, purpose, a second chance to get right what Josephine and Rebecca had gotten wrong, to protect what mattered without isolating herself, to build something meaningful without sacrificing love. As Claire locked the apartment door for the last time, she thought about all the women whose lockets filled the center's vaults. Empresses and seamstresses, famous and forgotten, all connected by the simple act of carrying memory close to their hearts. Now their stories would continue, preserved and shared, protected but not hidden. That was Josephine's real gift. Not the wealth, but the understanding that some treasures were meant to be held and some were meant to be given away. Claire had learned to tell the difference. 2 years after inheriting Josephine's collection, Claire stood in the Hartwell Center's newest gallery, watching workers install the final pieces of an exhibition that would change everything. The Forgotten Voices, Working Women's Lockets, 1850 to 1950, would open in 3 days, showcasing pieces from the collection that had never been publicly displayed. Not the famous royal lockets or celebrity pieces, but the ordinary ones. Lockets owned by factory workers, domestic servants, seamstresses, laundresses. Women whose names appeared in no history books, but whose stories deserve to be told. "Mom, the photographer from the Times is here," Lily called from the doorway. At 14, she'd grown 3 inches and developed a confidence that still surprised Claire. Her daughter moved through the museum like she belonged there, because she did. That's when I found Josephine, found articles about her restoration work, traced our family tree, realized our grandmother was alive and had been watching us for years. I went to Millbrook expecting to find a bitter old woman, maybe ask for help with medical bills. Instead, I found someone who understood, who'd lost everything that mattered and built something beautiful from the grief. She showed me the collection, Claire, and I understood immediately what it meant. Not just the monetary value, but the purpose. All those women's stories preserved, protected, honored. Josephine offered to pay for everything, experimental treatments, the best doctors, whatever I needed. But I said no. I know that probably sounds crazy. I was dying, and I turned down help that might have saved me. But Claire, by the time I found Josephine, the cancer had spread. The doctors gave me 6 months, maybe a year with aggressive treatment that would just make me sicker. I didn't want to spend my last months in hospitals. I wanted to spend them with you. And I didn't want you carrying guilt about money you didn't know existed that might not have even worked. So I made Josephine promise to wait, to let me die without complicating your grief, to give you time to heal before appending your life with this inheritance. I spent my last 2 years visiting Josephine regularly, learning about the collection, hearing the stories behind the lockets, understanding why she devoted her life to preservation. And I came to see that the collection wasn't the obsession that drove Mom away. It was the grief our family never learned to process. Josephine lost her husband, lost Rebecca, lost us. The lockets became her way of holding on to love when everyone she loved was gone. Mom saw it differently. She saw someone choosing objects over people. But Mom was wrong. Josephine chose the only thing she had left after people chose to leave her. Now it's yours. And Claire, you're going to be amazing at this. Not because you have training or credentials, but because you understand what really matters. You know the difference between surviving and living, between hoarding and sharing, between hiding and honoring. Don't let anyone make you feel unqualified. You're the most qualified person I know to steward something this important. I wish I could see what you'll build with it. But I trust you completely. You've never let me down. You won't let Josephine down either. Take care of Lily. Tell her about me, sometimes about the good parts. And live, Claire. Really live. Not just work and survive, but find joy. Find love. Find yourself in all this. The collection is a gift, but it's not your whole life. Don't make Josephine's mistake of letting it consume everything else. All my love, always Anna. P.S. There's one more locket in the collection that Josephine wanted me to tell you about. It's cataloged as 1952-002, kept in the personal archive section. She said you'd know when the time was right to open it. I think that time is now. Claire read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Anna had known she was dying and had still protected Claire, had still put Claire's well-being above her own survival. And she'd been wrong. Claire would have wanted to know, would have wanted those extra months or years, even if they were borrowed time, would have wanted the chance to say a better goodbye. But Anna had made her choice out of love, just like Rebecca had made her choice out of love, just like Josephine had made all her choices, however flawed, out of love. 4 generations of women, all trying to protect each other in the only ways they knew how. Claire wiped her eyes and pulled up the collection database on her computer. Search for catalog number 1952-002. There it was, listed as Hartwell Family, Personal Archive, not for public display. She went down to the vault, the same space where this had all started 2 years ago, now even more carefully preserved and organized. Found the Personal Archive section and located 1952-002. The locket was simple gold, unadorned, smaller than most in the collection. The placard read, J. Hartwell, personal item. Do not catalog for exhibition. Claire opened the locket carefully. Inside was a photograph she recognized. Young Rebecca, maybe 5 years old, laughing. And opposite it, another photograph. A man Claire had never seen before. Handsome, with Josephine's sharp eyes and gentle smile. On the back of the locket, an inscription, Thomas Hartwell, 1933 to 1970. Forever in my heart. Josephine's husband. The one who died before Claire was born. The loss that had started Josephine's spiral into collecting as a coping mechanism. But there was something else in the locket. A small folded paper, yellowed with age. Claire unfolded it carefully. A letter dated November 1970. My dearest Josephine, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe days. I'm writing this while I still can, while my hand is steady enough to tell you what you need to hear. Don't let my death destroy you. I know how you are, how you process grief by controlling what you can, by building walls of beautiful things to protect yourself from pain. I've watched you start doing it already, buying lockets, cataloging them obsessively. But Josephine, objects can't replace people. The collection can't replace me. Please don't let it. Rebecca needs her mother. She's only 7, and she's scared because her daddy is dying. She needs you present, engaged, not buried in work and acquisition. Promise me you won't disappear into the collection. Promise me you'll stay connected to the people who love you. Promise me you'll let yourself grieve instead of hiding behind preservation and documentation. I love you. I've loved you since we were teenagers. I'll love you after I'm gone. But my love won't live in a locket. It'll live in how you choose to move forward, how you raise our daughter, how you stay open to life even when life has broken your heart. Be brave enough to feel the pain. Don't run from it into collecting and isolation. All my love, forever, Thomas. Claire sat on the vault floor, holding the letter, understanding finally what had broken her family apart. Thomas had begged Josephine not to let grief consume her. But she had anyway, had thrown herself into the collection, had let it become her wall against pain, her substitute for the husband and eventually the daughter she'd lost. And Rebecca had watched it happen, had seen her mother choose preservation over presence, had fled rather than become collateral damage to Josephine's grief. They'd both been trying to survive Thomas's death. They'd just chosen completely opposite paths. Josephine into control and collection, Rebecca into escape and independence. Neither had been wrong, exactly. They'd just been broken in different ways. Claire's phone rang. Lily, Mom, where are you? The exhibition preview starts in an hour, and you need to get ready, right? The Working Women's Lockets exhibition. The opening she'd been planning for months. I'll be right up, Claire said. But first, she carefully photographed Thomas's letter and the locket, documenting them the way Josephine had taught her. Then she placed everything back exactly as she'd found it. This locket wasn't for public display. It was personal, private, Josephine's reminder of the husband who'd beg her not to let grief destroy her life. And yet, grief had destroyed it anyway. Just slowly, over decades, until Josephine found herself old and alone with a priceless collection and no one to share it with. Claire wouldn't make the same mistake. The exhibition preview that evening was packed. Journalists, scholars, community members, all gathered to see lockets that had belonged to women who'd worked in factories and shops and homes, who'd earned pennies but still found ways to preserve beauty and memory. Claire gave her speech, talking about the importance of honoring all women's stories, not just the famous ones. About how every locket in the exhibition represented someone's mother, sister, daughter, someone who'd loved and been loved. But as she spoke, she kept thinking about Anna's letter, about the instruction not to let the collection become her whole life. After the formal program, as guests mingled and examined the exhibits, Henry approached Claire. "Good turnout," he said. "Josephine would be proud." "Henry, can I ask you something? About Josephine and Thomas? What do you want to know? Was she happy? Before he died, was Josephine happy?" Henry smiled sadly. "Happier than I ever saw her after. Thomas grounded her, kept her connected to what mattered. After he died, she got lost in the grief. Started collecting compulsively, pushed everyone away. By the time I met her, 20 years later, she'd built this fortress of valuable objects and convinced herself it was what she wanted. Do you think she regretted it? At the end?" "I know she did. She told me, the last time I saw her before she went into hospice. Said her only regret was letting fear and grief keep her from Rebecca, from you and Anna. Said she'd built something extraordinary, but paid too high a price for it. What would you want to do differently?" Henry looked around the gallery, at the exhibits and the engaged visitors and the educational programs in action. "This, exactly this. You've taken what she built in isolation and opened it to the world. You've kept the collection alive while staying alive yourself. That's the difference." The next morning, Claire made a decision. She called a staff meeting and announced something that surprised everyone. "I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations. We're hiring an executive director, someone with museum management experience who can handle administration while I focus on the collection itself and new acquisitions. I'll stay on as founder and board president, but I need to not be consumed by running everything." Dr. Emily Zhang, the curator, smiled. "About time. You've been working yourself to exhaustion. Josephine did that. I won't. This museum matters, but so does my daughter, my life, my ability to actually enjoy what we've built." Over the next months, Claire found a rhythm that worked. She hired Dr. Patricia Morrison, no relation to the judge, as executive director. A woman with 20 years of museum experience who shared Claire's vision but brought organizational skills Claire lacked. With Patricia handling operations, Claire could focus on what she loved, working with the Lockets themselves, researching their histories, acquiring new pieces, building relationships with families who wanted their heirlooms preserved. She also, for the first time in years, had time for herself. Started taking classes at the community college, art history, museum studies, filling in the educational gaps she'd always felt insecure about. Started painting again, a hobby she'd loved as a teenager but abandoned when survival took priority. Started dating, tentatively, a local teacher who loved history and didn't care about her lack of credentials. Lily thrived too. She decided she wanted to study conservation and restoration, had been accepted to a summer program at a prestigious university. At 14, she already knew what she wanted to do with her life. Preserve beautiful things the way Josephine had, but with the balance Claire had learned to maintain. 3 years after inheriting the collection, Claire stood in the storage unit where this journey had really begun. She'd finally gotten around to sorting through the last boxes of Rebecca's belongings, finding closure with a mother she'd lost so young. In the bottom of one box, she found a journal she'd never seen before. Rebecca's handwriting, but from much earlier, teenage years by the dates. Claire sat on the floor and started reading. March 15th, 1966. Mom took me to an estate sale today. She gets so excited looking at old jewelry, examining every piece. I don't really get it, but I like seeing her happy. Dad's only been gone a few months, and she's been so sad. At least the Lockets make her smile. July 3rd, 1968. Mom bought a locket today that made her cry. It has a picture of someone's baby from like 100 years ago. She said it reminded her that love persists even when people are gone. I asked if she meant Dad. She just hugged me and cried more. October 12th, 1970. I'm scared Mom is disappearing into the collection. She barely sleeps, barely talks to me. Just catalogs and researches and acquires. I miss her. I miss having a mother who's present instead of buried in the past. The entries tracked Rebecca's growing resentment, her fear that Josephine was choosing Lockets over her daughter, her decision to leave as soon as she was old enough. But there was one final entry, dated April 1973, right before Rebecca left with infant Claire. I'm leaving tomorrow, taking Claire and running to New York. I know Mom will be devastated, but I can't stay. Can't watch her waste her life on dead people's jewelry when she has a living daughter and granddaughter right here. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe the collection is how she copes with losing Dad. Maybe I should try harder to understand. But I can't risk Claire growing up like I did, watching her mother love objects more than people, seeing her choose preservation over presence. I hope someday Mom understands. I hope someday we can reconcile. I hope Claire never has to make choices like this. But for now, I have to run. I have to protect my daughter from the same loneliness that's consuming my mother. Claire closed the journal, finally understanding the full tragic arc of it all. Thomas had begged Josephine not to let grief destroy her. Josephine had tried but failed, had let the collection consume her. Rebecca had run to save herself and Claire from the same fate. Anna had found Josephine but died too soon to bridge the gap. And now Claire had inherited it all. The collection, the pain, the responsibility. But unlike Josephine, Claire had learned from the mistakes, had built something beautiful without sacrificing everything else, had honored the past without being consumed by it, had broken the cycle. That evening, Claire invited Lily to the vault. They sat together in front of the displays, mother and daughter, surrounded by centuries of women's stories. I want to show you something, Claire said. She pulled up the database and found Thomas Hartwell's locket, the one with his letter. She let Lily read it, watched emotions play across her daughter's face. He tried to warn her, Lily said quietly. Tried to save her from herself. He did. She couldn't hear it. Grief was too loud. Are you scared? That you'll end up like Grandma Josephine? Sometimes. That's why I step back from day-to-day operations. Why I'm taking classes, dating, painting again. The collection is important, but it's not everything. Good. Lily paused. Mom, can I ask you something? Do you ever regret it? Taking the inheritance, building all this. Claire thought about the question seriously. Sometimes I miss the simplicity of our old life. When the biggest problem was making rent, when I knew exactly who I was, a nursing home worker raising her daughter. This is more complicated, more stressful, more public. But I also get to do something that matters. Get to preserve stories that would otherwise be lost. Get to honor Josephine's vision while fixing what she got wrong. Get to give you opportunities one never dreamed possible. Claire took Lily's hand. No, I don't regret it. This is hard, but it's good hard. Meaningful hard. I feel the same way. I mean, sometimes I miss when we were just normal. But I like this better. Like being part of something bigger. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lily said, What do you think Grandma Josephine would say if she could see the center now? Claire smiled. I think she'd be amazed. Maybe a little overwhelmed by how public it is, how many people are involved. But I think she'd be proud that her collection found its purpose. That it's not locked away anymore, but shared and celebrated. And Aunt Anna would love it. She understood what the collection could become. She'd probably be running the education programs, teaching kids about history through the Lockets. And Mom? Our mom Rebecca. That was harder. Claire thought about her mother's journals, her fear of the collection, her determination to escape it. I think Mom will be conflicted. She'd be proud of what we've built, but nervous about it consuming us. She'd probably check in constantly to make sure we're okay, that we're not repeating Josephine's mistakes. Are we repeating her mistakes? I don't think so. We have each other. We have balance. We have lives outside the museum. Josephine had none of that. The center's 5th anniversary brought an announcement that made national news. The Hartwell Collection, in partnership with the Smithsonian, would launch a traveling exhibition, Lockets Through Time, 5 centuries of women's stories. The exhibition would tour 10 major cities over 3 years, bringing Josephine's collection to millions of people who would never visit the small museum in Millbrook. Claire stood at a press conference announcing the partnership, fielding questions from journalists about the collection, the center, her unlikely journey from nursing home worker to museum founder. "How does it feel?" one reporter asked, "to go from living paycheck to managing a collection worth $500 million?" Claire thought about the question. "Honestly, some days I still can't believe it's real. I wake up expecting to be back in our old apartment, rushing to make it to work on time. But then I remember, this is real. This is my life now, and I have a responsibility to honor it, to use it well, to make sure it means something beyond just the monetary value." What would you say to other people struggling financially who dream of a windfall, changing their lives? I'd say be careful what you wish for. Sudden wealth solves some problems, but creates others. It's not a magic fix. You still have to work hard, make difficult decisions, prove yourself. The money just changes what you're working toward. Any regrets? Claire thought about Josephine dying alone, about Anna keeping secrets, about Rebecca running away, about all the pain and isolation and grief that had led to this moment. My only regret is that it took loss to bring us here. I wish Josephine and my mother had reconciled. I wish Anna had lived to see the museum. I wish my family had found a way to love each other while they were all still alive, instead of leaving me to piece together their stories from journals and letters. She paused. But I'm grateful too. Grateful for Josephine's vision, for Anna's guidance, for my mother's fierce protection of me. All their choices, even the painful ones, led here. To a place where women's stories are honored, where history is preserved, where beauty and meaning coexist. That's what I tell visitors when they're overwhelmed by the collection's value. Yes, these lockets are worth millions of dollars. But their real value is in the stories they tell, the lives they represent, the love they preserve. That's priceless. After the press conference, Claire found a quiet moment in her office. She pulled out the locket that had started everything, the one that wouldn't stay closed, the one Anna had left her, the one containing Josephine's photograph. It still opened sometimes, though less frequently now. Claire liked to think it was Josephine's spirit checking in, making sure the collection was safe and cared for. She opened it deliberately this time, looking at young Josephine holding baby Rebecca. "We did it," she whispered to the photograph. "We broke the cycle. We found a way to preserve your legacy without repeating your mistakes. We're sharing the collection instead of hiding it. We're building community instead of walls. We're choosing both, the objects and the people." The locket didn't respond, of course. But when Claire closed it, it stayed shut. She took it as confirmation that somewhere, somehow, Josephine knew and approved. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.